Welcome to Fall into ETF Investing. On today's special episode, our panel of guest speakers will be discussing income and growth, the key to retirement.
Thank you for joining our Fall into ETFs special edition of ETF Market Insights. I'm Erin Allen with BMO ETFs. ETF Market Insights is a weekly series that looks to provide do-it-yourself investors with important insights to help them manage their own investments. In this episode, we'll be discussing important considerations for retirees around the significance of balancing cash flow and growth in their portfolios, and a look at the popular covered call ETF industry. Today, I'll be passing off my hosting duties to Pat Boland. Pat has been in the investment industry for more than 4 decades. He's worked in the finance industry as a TV host and business editor at popular news outlets, and he has also written for publications like Money Sense. Before I turn it over to Pat, a quick reminder that today we're not providing any investment advice or recommendations. Today is all about education. Pat, I'll turn it over to you.
Welcome everyone to today's discussion around income and growth, the key to retirement. The ETF industry, led by BMO ETFs, has gravitated to a product called covered calls. Now, Kevin Prince is Managing Director of BMO ETFs, and he joins us to discuss this strategy. Kevin brings a wealth of industry experience with over 2 decades in the industry, and Kevin has extensive expertise in ETFs and covered call strategies. Kevin, let's kick things off.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, my pleasure. Okay, covered call strategies. They've been around for a while. Walk us through exactly what they are.
Absolutely. There's a lot of terminology in our industry, so let's break it down, right? Now, first, when we talk about income, I want to be perfectly clear. We're talking about cash flow for the most part, right? That's the cash flow people are earning on a regular basis. So let's talk about covered calls in the context of what the strategy is. And I kind of break it down in kind of 2 parts, right? Because there's a cover and a call. So let's first of all talk about the call. And the background behind the call, you have to understand that in the industry, there are a lot of people out there that will pay for the option to buy your security away from you, right? And they'll pay an actual, we call a premium. Now that's writing a call is what we call it in the industry. So that's where the call part comes from, because you're writing the option for the security to be taken away from you, and you're getting paid for that. That's where the extra premium comes from in the cover call strategy. Now, where does the word covered come into play, right? The word cover is effectively you're holding the underlying securities in the basket that can be called away. So you're covered if they're called away. Now, a key thing when you think about a cover call strategy, when you look at that income or that cash flow we're talking about, you get the underlying dividends, right? You'll get the growth in securities if they're written out of the money. And then on top of that, you will get the premium too. So that's how the composition of a cover call comes together.
Okay, it sounds like there may be embedded trade-offs in a covered call strategy. Can you comment on that and why they make sense for investors?
Absolutely. When you look at any investment out there, there's generally trade-offs, right? And I like to look at the trade-offs for a cover call. It's kind of 2 parts. Number 1, the strategy itself, and then the implementation of the strategy. So let's talk about the strategy itself. A cover call strategy, by definition, because you can get called away, and that would have a limited on its upside, right? But if you talk about how much you're being limited is really dependent upon the implementation of the strategy. So for example, at BMO, we do a few things to give a chance for somebody to participate in the market too. So we're generally writing about 50% of the book. What does that effectively mean? We write it equally across the book, but what that means is that when the market moves up, you're getting the growth on that half, right? In addition, we're writing out of the money on our options. So that effectively means that as the market moves up, you're getting that portion of upwards movement up into the limit, right? We also write on a month to 2 month basis. So as the market moves up, we can keep resetting that limit that you can get called away from. But that's a different in the strategies. That gives you kind of more of a growth and income approach, and there are different strategies out there for cover calls.
You talk about terms, and we hear terms like total return and price return. What's the difference?
Great question. These terms get, again, passed around the industry, lots of terminology. So let's dive into that. Like total return basis, if you think about it, the market moves up, you want to see if you're moving up too. And when you look at a performance chart out there, generally what you see is a movement upwards, and that would be your performance chart would include your income plus your principal growth. On the other side, if you just want to look at how your principal is doing, like let's call it your nest egg, right? Is my nest egg growing? That's your price return across the board. So if you look at the two of them come together, that's a good way kind of on analyzing the respective income that's coming into you or that cash flow that's coming into you and the composition of that cash flow.
Does this strategy eliminate or mitigate volatility?
That's a good misconception out there. I would say no, it doesn't mitigate volatility. Market has volatility. Over time, what you'll get is the ongoing premium being paid to you. So that builds what I like to call a kind of a cushion. So if you think about it, over the long term, as a downwards movement, you get a little bit of cushion. But if there's a day-to-day movement up or down, you will participate in that because it'll take a while for that cushion to be built up and that income to be earned.
What sort of markets are these best suited in, and where should investors use them?
That's another good question. I mean, you can look at cover calls as tactically, and let me come back to that in a second. But if you look at a tactically perspective, if you kind of a range-bound market, a cover call will outperform because you're not only getting, range-bound markets are staying like this, right? And you're getting that ongoing premium, plus you're getting that ongoing dividend, so you're generally outperforming. Then if a cover call strategy is writing out of the money on a regular basis, right? If the market is drifting up over time, like as long as you're below that limit, you're getting the ongoing dividend, plus you're getting that market growth, right? Up to the limit, of course. And then you're getting the premium. Of course, is also an outperformance strategy. But keep in mind though, if a cover call strategy and there's a quick upward movement in the marketplace, you'll trail, right? To be fair. So while you can use cover calls to maybe outperform the market or tactically, I like to look at more of an income strategy on an ongoing basis for an investor, good financial planning tools for that matter. And also if you think about it, if you're looking at a strategy that focuses on growth and income, they could be maybe a replacement for part of your portfolio or a complement part of your portfolio to kind of generate that income you need.
BMO was first in Canada into the covered call strategy. A little bit of history there. What are your thoughts?
I was there firsthand.
I'll bet.
Yeah, actually, it was a really amazing time because if you look at ETFs, and I really like the industry of ETFs in general, because I like to think that they've enhanced portfolio construction. So let's look what happened when we launched cover call ETFs, and we did launch the very first cover call ETF in Canada. When you look at what brought in the marketplace, we were talking to advisors at the time, and advisors were saying to us, we like the strategy of writing a cover call, but ultimately, we can only do it on our ultra high net worth clients. We can't give it to everybody. So they wanted to enhance the access to people across the board. The other thing they were saying to us was the complexity. They have to write options on a regular basis. This takes time and effort. And so, for example, they would probably write like a 6-month option. Now that's not optimal for the income, and you got greater chances potentially of being called away in the future because you're writing a longer term. And last one, for the end investor. There's a little bit more complexity because you got two positions always, offsetting each other. So in working with advisors, they just really wanted to simplify the strategy and provide greater access across the board. And that's effectively what the ETF did, is they packaged the strategy up so you can really focus on, is this a strategy that I want that's generating income or cash flow for me on a regular basis?
BMO's success with covered call strategies has brought in other entrants. What should an investor look at in terms of assessing those other ones and doing their due diligence?
Due diligence is key, right? If you think in this industry, there's one of the nice things the regulators brought in not too long ago was a document called ETF Facts. Everybody in the industry must produce this document. Sometimes a bit harder to find on websites, but it's still there. And I want to be perfectly clear, this is not the fact sheet, right? This is the facts document. Fact sheet quite often is marketing. This is the key facts on the document, on the product. What will you find in there? You get transparency in ETF on a website, but what this can provide you is kind of transparency in the fees, right? Because there's a management fee for the ETF, but is there anything else that you need to be aware of? Maybe they're using leverage, or maybe they're using third-party ETFs, and you need to understand the total costs inside there. That will come out with inside that document. So a key document to look at, the ETF Facts.
Kevin, thanks.
Thanks for having me.
And that wraps up today's discussion on income and growth in retirement. And Kevin, thanks again for sharing your knowledge and breaking down the benefits of covered call strategies for the audience. For those watching, We'd love to hear your thoughts. Leave a comment below and let's keep the conversation going. Don't forget to subscribe to stay updated on more discussions like today's. And thanks very much for joining us. See you next time.